So how do you smother? Remember, I said that fire needs oxygen to start. And fire it is not only when fire wants to start that it will need oxygen. Fire also needs oxygen to keep burning. It's just like fire is just like human being. You know, at every point in time, you need oxygen to stay alive. Fire also needs oxygen to keep burning at any point in time. Now, two ways by which you can smother. You either remove the oxygen in the fire, or you prevent oxygen from getting to the fire. So if you want to prevent oxygen from getting to the fire, you make use of your fire blanket. This is the fire blanket. Just like human being. You know, if you want to stop somebody from breathing, you cover his nose. You cover his nose and his mouth. In few minutes time, the person will go unconscious. And if care is not taken, the person might give up the ghost. The same thing happens to fire. This fire blanket, just use it to cover the fire. You know, it will prevent oxygen from getting into the fire. Once the oxygen inside the fire, the one is exhausted, the fire will die a natural death. That is as simple as that. Once the oxygen inside the fire, the one that starts the combustion process, is exhausted, what do you think will happen? The fire will just die a natural death. Do you have a question?
Is the blanket fireproof? Can't it catch fire?
Let me answer. That's a very good question. The blanket can catch fire. If you throw it inside the fire, if you don't use it to cover the fire, if you just throw it inside fire, it will burn. But if you use it to cover fire, it will not burn. It will extinguish that fire. But it is fire retardant. Do you understand? You want to ask a question? Towel, wet towel. You can also use wet towel. No problem. If you want to ask a question.
You mentioned, all right. You mentioned that the element of fires would include that there must be a fuel, but I've seen fire that occur without fuel, like wire when wires start burning, like spark. I'm not sure there's oxygen there or something. What about kind of?
Now, you know, I said for us to be here, it means that this place is habitable. There is no how. Even in confined space, a confined space is a place with limited entry and exit. There will be a certain amount of fuel, a certain amount of oxygen. There's hardly a place that there will be no oxygen at all. Do you understand? Then you talk about the electrical wire. You know, electrical wire, inside those insulators, there is electrical conductor. They may be made of maybe iron or aluminium. What is the insulator made of? It is made of rubber now. It is fuel. Do you get it now? It is made of rubber. So that one is fuel. It's a solid fuel. So if it is that insulator that will get, if it is that conductor that will get heated. So if it gets heated, it will be transferred from that electrical conductor to the insulator. Once the temperature of that insulator rises to its ignition temperature is simply means the lowest temperature at which any material will catch fire without coming in contact with naked flame. Every material has its own ignition temperature. So once the conductor transfer heat to that insulator, which is made of rubber, the temperature of that rubber will rise. And once the temperature of that rubber rises to its ignition temperature, automatically there will be fire. So we are talking about smoldering. I've talked about the fire blanket, how you can use the fire blanket to smother a fire. That is, you are preventing oxygen from getting into the fire. Now, we want to talk about how you can remove oxygen from that fire itself. We can remove oxygen by using a chemical foam compound. Once you apply it to the fire, once you apply that chemical foam compound to the fire, that chemical foam compound will remove that oxygen that starts that fire, and the fire is going to die a natural death. Now, we have talked about how fire starts, and we have also talked about how we can put it out, not prevent. How you can put the fire out. All you just need to do to put a fire out is to remove one from those three. Just remove one. The fire is going to die a natural death. Next slide. Now, this is just an experiment to show that oxygen supports combustion. The apparatus used are a candlestick, glass cup or jar, then a lighter. Action: light the candle and cover it with the glass cup. Now, let's say you light a candle and you now cover it with a glass cup. What do you think will happen to that fire? It will go off. Yes or no? If you light a candle and now cover it with a glass cup, the fire will go off. That means that oxygen is needed for that combustion process to continue. For fire to continue, we have set up a fire already. We now use a glass cup to cover that fire. We have prevented oxygen from getting to the fire. Now, once the oxygen that starts the fire, once it gets exhausted, that means the fire will go off naturally. That means that oxygen is a supporter of combustion. That is why if there is no oxygen, there will be no fire. If any of these three elements is missing, there will be nothing like fire. Now, what are the causes? This fire we are talking about, what are the causes of fire? We have 4 major causes of fire. The first one is accident. Fire can happen by accident. And what is an accident? An accident is the final event of an unplanned process that can lead to injury, illness, or death. Accident, you don't always plan for it. But it will happen. Sometimes it maybe as a result of negligence or just natural. An accident will happen. A typical example is when a truck conveying PMS, you've seen it several times, conveying PMS, it's moving along the road. And another truck, maybe conveying a gas or ordinary truck, and they collide with each other. Fire can start as a result of the impact with the other vehicle. Fire can easily start from there. Now, arson. Arson is a deliberate act and is a punishable offense under the law. We all saw what happened during the NSAS protest. Immediately after the Lekki shooting, we all knew what the citizen did to the government property. Like 2 fire stations were burnt. Up to today, it's still under construction. Ikotun fire station and Ejido fire station. They were burnt. 1 fire truck was burnt. BRT buses, hundreds of BRT buses were burnt. So, arson is a punishable offense under the law. Carelessness. Carelessness simply means negligence or uncared attitude. An example of carelessness is when you are ironing your clothes. You want to go to work or you want to come to church, and suddenly NEPA interrupt the power supply. Instead of you to remove the plug from the socket, you now say, on NEPA, you want it to bury. You just pick up your shirt, put it on, leave the iron inside the switch. You come to church. When you come to church, maybe 10 minutes or 30 minutes later, you are already in church, or you are already at work. NEPA restores the power supply. You know the iron will get hot. And don't forget that we always, before you iron our clothes, you always place like wrapper or towel. You always place it. You know that iron itself is a fuel. The wrapper you are placing on the table is also a fuel. The iron will get hot. It will be transferred from that iron to the wrapper. Once the wrapper gets to its ignition temperature, there will be ignition, automatic ignition. You just hear, they will just call you from wherever you are. Mr. Ladwaja, Mrs. Ladwaja, your house is on fire. Do you understand? They will just call you that your house is on fire. You will now be thinking, how did it happen? You will not know that you are the cause of the fire. The last one we are going to talk about is natural causes. Thunder strike, earthquake, volcanic eruption. They can also lead to fire outbreak. Most wildfires are caused by all these. Thunder strikes, volcanic eruption, earthquake. Most wildfires are caused by this. Next slide, please. Now, some of the careless attitudes. Number one, fueling of vehicle or generator while the engine is still working. I know many people, most of us are guilty of this. Yes or no? Yes. Sometimes, maybe you are watching football and the match is getting tougher. You don't want to switch off that generator and the fuel inside the generator is getting exhausted. What do? You just open. You know that fuel tank is already hot. It's very hot. It's already hot. You now pour the fuel. Now there is oxygen around. It is present. Enough heat is present, and you are now pouring fuel, a very volatile liquid. What do you think will happen? Explosion. So we need to take note of this. And secondly, most of these commercial buses, popularly known as downfall drivers, their ignition stuff is very bad. They use they join wire before the thing can start. So when they get to the filling station, they won't want to separate that wire because it might be very hard for them to start that vehicle again. They leave the engine on and they tell the fuel attendant to sell. Please, if you bought that kind of bus, please just get down while they are selling the fuel because it's very dangerous. And most of them, they will lock the door. Their doors are not always good. Come on, sure you understand. I didn't mean the door is good, you can easily open and run. The doors are not good. I boarded a bus, even the seat belt. I was now wondering, what if fire starts? I wanted to highlight, I cannot remove the seat belt. I was now thinking, what if fire happens inside this bus? What will be my fate? So let's be careful about this type of people. Anytime a bus driver, a commercial bus driver, is trying to get a fuel at the filling station, always make sure he switches off the engine. If he refuses to switch off, just get down. It's not by force. Get down. Wait for the pump attendant to finish selling the fuel. Then you can now go inside the bus. Now, the second one is indoor storage of flammable liquid. This usually happens. during fuel scarcity. Indoor storage is not good at all to store flammable liquids indoor because their ignition temperature, the ignition temperatures are very low. If you put it in a place where there is no ventilation, it can easily explode as a result of it. If that place is heated, as a result of it, it can easily explode. So let's desist from that. Don't let us store flammable liquid indoor. Even if you want to store a flammable liquid, you know there are some companies that they can't do without having petrol, PMS, because of maybe the people working in an hotel, those hotel owners, they will always have reservoir where they keep flammable liquid. It should be a well-ventilated area, not indoor. Careless disposal of cigarettes. The smokers, they just dispose their cigarette stick anyhow. Smoking in an unauthorized area is another careless attitude. Now, installation of cooking gas cylinder in the kitchen is very bad. Gas cylinders are not supposed to be installed in the kitchen. It should be installed outside. And there's this mistake we are making. They are small gas. They call it camp gas. Camp is supposed to be used in the camp, not at home. Maybe you go for picnic or you go for excursion. It is called camp gas. Not kitchen gas. It's not supposed to be in the kitchen. It's better you use electric cooker. So that gas is very dangerous. It is called camp gas, not kitchen gas. It's not supposed to, under no circumstance must you install a gas cylinder in the kitchen, because it may not be the gas that will be on fire, but as a result of it, it can explode. Sure, you understand? Let's say you are boiling, let's say you want to fry. You now put palm oil or groundnut oil on fire. You are now watching, maybe you are watching football. You now go back to the sitting room to watch your football, forgetting that you have put something on fire. Once the temperature, heat will be passed from the gas to the what? The gas burner to the palm oil or groundnut oil. Once the temperature of that cooking oil or palm oil, groundnut oil or palm oil rises to its ignition temperature, automatically there will be fire. It's an automatic process. There will be fire. And fire will generate heat. Anywhere there is fire, you feel it around you. Now, when that heat is transferred to the gas cylinder, the heat will best be transferred to the cylinder itself. Once that cylinder conducts it, and those cylinders, they are made of metals, maybe iron, aluminum, and coal. They are good conductors of heat. It will be transferred to the gas inside the cylinder. And at the same temperature, a liquid will expand more than a solid, and a gas will expand more than liquid and solid. What is inside the cylinder is a gas, and what is housing the gas is the cylinder. Now, once heat is transferred to that gas, let's now assume they have gotten to the same temperature. The gas will expand faster than the cylinder. Once the gas expands faster than the cylinder, there will be once it expands, it will be looking for more space. So, in the event of looking for more space, there will be explosion. That is why it is not good to store our gas cylinder inside the kitchen. If there is a fire, all you just need to do, if your gas cylinder is outside, and it is the palm oil or groundnut oil that is causing the fire, the first thing you just need to do is to eliminate the ignition source. The ignition source is the cylinder, is the one passing fuel to the what? To the burner. Just go outside, turn off the gas. So once you turn off the gas, that's the ignition. You have turned off the ignition source. All you just need to do is to tackle the fire that is burning, maybe with your fire extinguisher or fire blanket. Now, placing of candle on the table without a candle base. I know most of us, when we were in school, we always do this. Why burning the night candle? When we want to use candle, we must place it on candle base. Because if by adventure, as you are walking, you place the candle on the table, as you are walking, your body eats the table. On you don't even pay attention to it, and you walk out of the room. Remember, while reading, your books will be on the table. Once the candle fall on the book, the fire will begin to spread. Or before you know, let's say you want to go and buy Indomie that you will eat. Before you come back from the malam you went to buy Indomie, you will see your house on fire. So these are the careless attitude we must take note of. Overloading of electrical sockets, that's another thing. Overloading of electrical socket. I know most of us do this. You want to plug cooker, plug phone, plug your everything, plug charger, plug power bank on one electrical socket. And most of all these electrical sockets, they have current ratings. Once the current passing through this electrical socket exceed their own current rating, there will be overheating. And once there is overheating, there can be fire. Next slide. Now, so you can see this just one socket too. Who can count the amount of adapter that they use? Like 3 or 4. 6. They want to kill the socket. No, these are just pictures that are taken during inspection. It is not form. It is not what you just form. During inspections, fire service do carry out inspections. These are the pictures taken during inspection. You can see it. They want to kill the socket. Next slide. Now, you can see the candle without the candle base. If the candle falls on the table, the fire will begin to spread. Now, look at that man fueling his generator while the generator is on. The man, if by adventure there is a fire, you will not recognize the man. He will get burnt beyond repair, beyond recognition. Look at the cigarette, careless disposal of the cigarette. Now, next slide. The black marketers. Look at the first one, the jerrycan own. They are the black marketers. They are storing flammable liquids indoor. Now, by your right, you see people scooping fuel. Maybe there is a spillage. Maybe a tanker, by accident, falls down, and the PMS spills to the drainage. You can see people scooping the fuel. If you find yourself in this environment, the first thing you need to do, first get out of that environment. Walk far away. Then, after you have walked far away, you can now place a call to the fire service and Nigerian police. Next slide. Conditions that aid fire spread. The first one, lack of knowledge of fire protection. Some people don't even have any idea about fire, how fire starts, how you can extinguish fire, how you can, when the fire starts, how you can extinguish fire, or what the things you are going to do to prevent fire from occurring. Some people don't know anything about it. And that, if fire occurs, and that person is the only one there, the person won't know what to do in the event of fire. So, the more the delay, the more dangerous the situation becomes. Now, the second one, failure to raise alarm of fire promptly. Some people, if they discover a fire, let's say in a dwelling place, in a house, instead of them to raise alarm that fire, 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 they will be busy salvaging their property. As if they salvage their property, the fire will stop. So that's another thing that aids the spread of fire. Once you discover a fire, the first thing you need to do is to raise alarm, shout, fire, 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 so that everybody in that building can easily do what? Evacuate the building. Another one is the obstruction of fire protection and firefighting equipment. Sometimes you see fire extinguisher placed on the wall. Some people might have stocked their belongings near the fire extinguisher. They would have stacked it near the fire extinguisher in such a way that if peradventure there is a fire, even the person that knows how to use the extinguisher will not be able to remove the extinguisher from where the extinguisher is, because they have packed load where the extinguisher is supposed to be a free place where firefighting equipment is stored. There must be no obstruction. Excessive storage of flammable materials, we've talked about that. Bad housekeeping. Housekeeping is simply means that keeping your place neat and tidy, keeping your environment in orderly manner. Now, if you look at this church, I must confess, we are practicing bad housekeeping, and I will tell you. Look at this AC. This AC here. Look at that AC there. Now, let's say, God forbid, something like this, there's a fire. Fire broke out from that AC. You can see curtain at the back of the AC. The fire can easily spread from that AC to that curtain. And you know how curtain burns. Oh, Mama Laloni. Before you know it, in less than 2 minutes, the whole of this curtain, fire will spread to the whole of this curtain. And if fire spread to the whole of this curtain, what happens? The whole of this auditorium is on fire. Look at these chairs there. I would advise that we take away these 2 chairs there. The next 2 chairs over there, we should take it away. Because the purpose of good housekeeping is to prevent fire from occurring, and if peradventure the fire occurs, limit the fire spread. And we have said that we cannot totally eradicate fire. We can only reduce it to the barest minimum. So, these 2 chairs over there, my professional advice, they should be removed. The next 2 chairs over there, they should be removed. The curtains, they should be removed. Look at the speaker also. I don't know how we are going to do it. Just imagine. Just imagine if the fire starts from that speaker. It will easily spread to the curtain, and that curtain, the curtain is very light. Mama Laloni. Mama Salibai. It will be as if the fire is running. When you pour petrol on the floor and you throw a matchstick, you lit a matchstick and you throw it, it will be following that petrol. That's exactly what will be happening. Before you know it, in less than 1 minute, the whole auditorium will be engulfed with fire. So, God forbid, but the truth is bitter, but we must say it. And the last one, lack of firefighting facility and equipment. Some dwelling place Some dwelling places, some companies don't even have firefighting equipment. All they just need to say, nirogun no, nirogun no. Kò sẹ́ni tó fẹ́ rogun no. But it can happen. If it happens, how do you salvage the situation? Because it is your property, not the firefighter's property. Before they get there, that your certificate, that your first class you believe you worked for. Fire, you know what fire will do? Fire will just burn only your name. I want to see who will use that proper. You burn only your name. That's first class honor. You just burn that first. Who will now know your grade? So that is why we need to be very careful. You spend 5 years studying engineering and fire burn the certificate. Now let's now go to the next slide. The next slide is talking about classification of fire. Fire is being classified based on the content that is burning. Now let's talk about Class A fires. Class A fires are fires involving free burning or ordinary combustible materials. Example, wood, paper, cloth, grass. They are categorized as Class A fires. They are just free burning materials. Anytime this type of material is involved in fire, just know that it's a Class A fire. The next one is Class B fire. Class B fires are fires involving flammable liquids and combustible liquids. Example, petrol, kerosene, diesel, methylated spirit, ethanol. These are Class B fires. Now, Class C fires. Class C fires are fires involving flammable gases, like cooking gases, propane, butane, methane, acetylene. The acetylene is used for welding, and hydrogen. They are any fires that involve gas is categorized as Class C fires. Now, Class D fires. Class D fires are fires involving combustible metals like magnesium, aluminum, zinc, potassium. They are called Class D fires. Then Class F or K are fires involving large fat in the kitchen. For example, vegetable oil and palm oil. So, these are the classes of fires we have. Next slide. Now, effects of fire. Now, 1, loss of lives. If a place is on fire and someone is trapped in that fire, there's every tendency that that person can die. So it can lead to loss of life, loss of property, because the fire will consume all the property in that place. Unemployment. If fire breaks out in a workplace, you know, for some time, some people will stay out of job. Even the owner of the company, if that is his only source of income, that means the person will also stay out of job. That is why if you see anybody in your workplace practicing any careless attitude or unsafe act, it is better you first tell the person. If the person does not listen to you, please report that person, because if it happens, he that does the act, he will not be the only one that will bear the consequence. Everybody will bear the consequence. Now, once unemployment sets in, poverty will set in. Yes or no? Because you need money to survive. And once you are unemployed, how do you want to get money? So now, when poverty sets in, and there's this popular saying that the idle hand is the devil's workshop. there will be high rate of crime. Yes or no? You want to make ends meet. So if someone tells you to go and do something you are not supposed to do because you want to feed your family, some people will have no choice than to go and do what they are not supposed to do. Now we talked about fire. How to put out the fire. I now want to talk. Next slide. We now want to talk about the portable firefighting equipment. Now, portable firefighting equipment are devices that are used to extinguish fire at the incipient stage. Some of the portable fire extinguishers are: 1. Fireball, fire blanket, fire bucket, and fire extinguishers. Next slide. Who has seen a fireball before? That's the image of a fireball. Look up. Now, the fireball contains a dry chemical powder in it. You know, our normal ball, we have air inside. The football we play, we have air inside. Now, the fireball, what we have inside is the dry chemical powder. So, how do we use this fireball? When there is a fire, we either roll it inside the fire or throw it inside the fire. Now, what this fireball sends is the flame of the fire. Once you throw it inside the fire and it senses the flame of the fire, it will burst, now dispersing a cloud of the chemical. Once the chemical is dispersed to the fire is going to be extinguished. That is how the fireballs, how fireballs operate. Just roll it or throw it inside the fire. When you roll it, or once it gets inside the fire, there is no fire. You will see flame. Once it senses the flame, it will burst. Once it bursts, the cloud of the ABC powder will cover the fire, and the fire will be extinguished. Now, the fire blanket. I have shown you. The fire blanket is made of fire retardant material. And the fire blanket can only be used on confined or contained fire. What do I mean? The only time you can use the fire blanket is if the fire blanket can cover all the surface area of where the fire is burning. Let's say you have a bucket or you have a dustbin. Now, there's a fire inside the dustbin. Maybe somebody mistakenly light a match and turn off the stove burner, the gas burner. The person did not wait for the fire to go off. The person now threw the matchstick. The person threw it away. And when he threw it away, the matchstick gets inside your dustbin. You know, our dustbin is always beside us in the kitchen. Fire will start. So you can use fire blanket to do what? To extinguish such fire. You know, the fire blanket, what it does is that you just take it, you bring it out, hold it at arm's length, then you cover the surface of that waste bin. If the fire blanket cannot cover the whole surface of that waste bin or any fire, please don't use it. It's very dangerous. You can only use the fire blanket when it can cover the whole surface of that place that is involved in fire. Now, the fire blanket is commonly used in the kitchen, in the laboratory, or to cover person that is on fire. We have various sizes. We have different sizes of fire blankets. There are some fire blankets in the Western world. There are some fire blankets that they use on vehicles. Those ones are very big. So the only time you can use the fire blanket is when you are sure that that blanket can cover the surface area of that place that is engulfed in fire. Now, how do we use the fire blanket. Now, the first thing is to remove it from the container. This is the container. This red thing is just the container. First thing is to remove it from the container. The second thing, hold it at arm's length, shielding your hand. You hold it at, when you want to demonstrate, I'll show you everything. You hold it at arm's length, this way, shielding your hand. Then you place over the fire and leave for a few minutes to avoid reignition. Next slide. The next slide is the fire bucket. I know you must have seen this before. Where do we always see it? Filling station. Yes, it is used to prevent fire from occurring and also to extinguish incipient fire. How do we use it to prevent fire from occurring? Let's say there is a spillage. Maybe a pump attendant wants to sell fuel, and by mistake the fuel spills to the ground. All you just need to do is to take that fire bucket. Sand is always contained in that fire bucket. Just place it, use it to cover the fuel spillage. What that sand is doing is that it's preventing oxygen from getting to the fuel. So if by adventure there is any source of heat, the sand has already prevented oxygen from getting the fuel. That means the three elements of combustion can never be complete. And if there is a fire already, you can use that sand to do what? You can just pour the sand on the fire. What the sand is doing is that it's cutting away the supply of oxygen. It's smoothing the fire. Now, next slide. Now, fire extinguishers. Portable fire extinguisher. This is an example of a portable fire. What do you say? They are called portable fire extinguishers. Now, portable fire extinguishers are active firefighting devices, specially designed to extinguish or control small fires, often in emergency situations. Now, the portable fire extinguishers are divided into two: handheld and the cart-mounted or wheeled fire extinguisher. This is an example of handheld. You know, you can easily carry it from one place to another. You can easily carry it from one place to another. I don't know if you have seen some fire extinguishers that are placed beside a generator. You know, they do have with tires. Like those 25 kg fire extinguisher, 50 kg fire extinguisher. I've not seen it before. Those ones are called cart-mounted or wheeled fire extinguisher. Next slide. Now, the part of fire extinguishers. This is called the cylinder. We all know this. Now, this is called the safety pin. This is called the safety pin. What the safety pin is doing is that it's preventing accidental discharge of the extinguishing agent inside the cylinder. You know, sometimes you see those, the military personnel, they put their gun in safe mode. If they want to use it, they will not cock it. They remove it from the safe mode. That's exactly what's happening here also. This pin is putting this extinguisher in safe mode. You can see, I can press it, but nothing is happening because it is in safe mode. Once I remove this safety pin, if I press it, the extinguishing agent will come out. So what this safety pin is doing is that it's preventing accidental discharge. So if you want to use it, maybe in the event of fire, That means that you have to remove this safety pin first. If you don't remove the safety pin, you just be struggling. If you like, press it from today till next year, nothing will happen. Now, this is the nozzle. This is the nozzle. This is where the extinguishing agent will come out from. This is the lever. They call it handle. This black handle is called lever or handle. This is what you press for the extinguishing agent to be expelled. Now, here you have a gauge. In this extinguisher, in this cylinder, two things are contained in this cylinder. Number one is the extinguishing agent itself, which is a dry chemical powder. The number two, the expellant. The expellant is what is like expellant are gases. Now, the expellant is what is forcing out the extinguishing agent. By nature, the extinguishing agent is passive. It cannot expel itself. Just like football. You know, if there is no air in football, you won't be able to play it. It is when you pump air into football that you'll be able to do what? To play it. Now, the expellant is the one that forces out the extinguishing agent. Now, if you see this is like a gauge. Now, this gauge is measuring the amount of pressurized air inside the cylinder. This gauge is telling you the amount of pressurized air inside the cylinder. So, at any point in time, you see that this gauge, there is a black mark there. Let me bring it closer to you. This gauge, you have a black mark. So at any point in time, and you have an arrow there also. Yes. At any point in time, that arrow must be on that black mark. Now, if the arrow is going in clockwise direction, that if it has left the black mark, if it's going in clockwise direction, it means that this extinguisher is overcharged and is very dangerous. It can explode. This is one of those things you need to look out for. If that arrow is leaving the black mark and is going in the clockwise, you know how clock rotates, and is going in clockwise direction, just know that the extinguisher is overcharged. You better take it to the technician so that they can remove the amount of pressurized air. And if the arrow is going anti-clockwise, it means that it is undercharged. Maybe someone has used the extinguisher. So at any point in time, an extinguisher that is ready for use, the arrow, the pointer or the indicator, that arrow is called pointer or indicator, must always be on that black mark. Now, classification of portable fire extinguishers. Next slide. Now, there are four main types of portable fire extinguishers. Number one, water fire extinguisher. The water fire extinguisher is an extinguisher that expels water, and it is used on Class A fires. What do we call Class A fires? Fires involving free-burning materials such as wood, paper, plastic, grass, rubber. So if any of these materials is involved in fire, what we use is water fire extinguisher. And what does that do? It removes the heat, that's cooling. Now, the second one is foam fire extinguisher. The foam fire extinguisher expels foam compound. That's the foam compound is a mixture of water, foam concentrate, and air. So that's why you see some people, if a place is on fire, they will put omo inside. It's just like they are improvising. They will put omo, they will mix omo with water and pour it on the fire. Now, the foam fire extinguisher are used on Class A and Class B fires. Normally, it is designed for Class B fires. That is fire involving flammable liquids. But because of its water content, you know it contains water. You know I said foam, a chemical foam compound, is a mixture of foam concentrate, water, and air. So, because of its water content, it can also be used on Class A fires. Then, carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. This carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. The carbon dioxide fire extinguisher expels gas. That's CO2. You know CO2 is a gas. So it is used on Class C fire extinguisher. And Class C fire extinguisher are fires involving flammable gases. Now, the last one is dry chemical powder, which is that one. The dry chemical powder fire extinguisher expels chemical powder, and it is used on Class D fires. That is fires involving combustible metals such as aluminium, magnesium, potassium, and zinc. And for your information, this extinguisher is also called multi-purpose fire extinguisher. That means it can be used on Class A, Class B, Class D, Class C, and Class D. It can be used on all the 4 classes of fire. That's why you call it multi-purpose. But it has one disadvantage. It cannot be used in a confined space. Why? Because of its chemical content. It's very toxic. If you inhale it, maybe somebody that is asthmatic, if that person inhales it, the person can fall unconscious. So that is why it is not advised to be used in a confined space. Like the one we have up there is a dry chemical powder. It's not that safe to be used. What we need here is carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Yes. Mounting of fire extinguishers. Fire extinguishers should be mounted in a strategic place. And 2, in a conspicuous place where people can easily see them. So that if there's anyone that can use the fire extinguisher, the person can easily pick up the extinguisher and put out the fire. Now, let's quickly go to how to use the fire extinguisher. Don't worry, we'll soon finish. Now, let's quickly go to how to use the fire extinguisher. Next slide. Now, fire extinguisher is operated with the acronym called PASS. Now, the P means, I said it is operated with the acronym called PASS. Next slide. Now, the P means pull the safety pin. This is the safety pin. You know I said the safety pin is putting the extinguisher in a safe mode. Now, if you don't pull the safety pin, you can see I pressed it. Yes, you have to pull the safety pin. That's what the P stands for. Next slide. Now, The A means aim at the base of the fire. Why do you need to aim at the base of the fire? You know, I said that fire is what you see when something is burning. If you target the flame, the extinguishing agent will just fly off. You know, beneath the flame is what is burning. Now, that is why you have to aim at the base of the fire, so that you can eat the fuel. You can eat what is burning, because that's the source. So once you tackle the source, the rest will be history. So that is why you need to aim at the base of the fire, so that you can eat the fuel that is burning. Next slide. Now, the next one is squeeze the lever or top handle. This is the lever. Once you have removed the safety pin, you have aimed at the base of the fire. The next thing is to squeeze the lever. Once you press it, the lever, you see the extinguishing agent out. Now, the last S. Next slide. Yes, the last S is sweep from side to side, like you are sweeping. Let's say it's a fire that is, there's a fire on the floor. So you can easily do what? Sweep from side to side, so that you extinguish the fire completely. Next slide. For an effective usage of fire extinguishers, 1. Attack the fire with the appropriate fire extinguisher without endangering your or other people's life. That is very important. You know, we've talked about the classes of fire, and we have talked about the classes of fire extinguisher. Don't use water to extinguish fire involving electricity. Because of what? Electrocution. Is that understood? Please. Even if you want to use water to do that, first make sure you render the circuit dead. Maybe you are switched off, maybe from your changeover. If water is the only thing you have. You know, sometimes I know most people don't have fire extinguishers at home. So if water is the only option, just go to your changeover to put it to neutral. So with that, you know, you have rendered the circuit dead. So you can then use water. And don't use water on fires involving flammable liquid, such as petrol, kerosene. Nothing will happen. So if you know that you don't have the appropriate fire extinguisher to tackle the type of fire that is burning, just do what? Evacuate that premises. Is that understood? Now, do not use water, I've said that, on electrical fires. Do not use DCP in a confined space. I've explained that also. Should DCP fire extinguisher be used in a confined space, ensure adequate ventilation. That is, if it's the only option you have, just make sure after you have used it, just make sure you open the windows everywhere so that fresh air can come inside. Once operated, fire extinguishers must not be hung, because what it means that if you use a fire extinguisher, after you have used the fire extinguisher, you are supposed to go and refill it and service it. Then, for us to know that this fire extinguisher has been used, this is what we do. We place it on the floor. It shows that it is not fit for use. Once you hang a fire extinguisher, you know, you always hang it on a wall. Once you hang a fire extinguisher, it means that it is fit for use. It is ready for use. Now take for instance, you have already exhausted all the content inside the cylinder. You want to ask a question? Just release it. If you don't want to expel it again, just release it, the top hand. You know, it's the top hand. This is what you press. You are holding it with this. So this is what you press for the extinguishing agent to come out. Once you don't want it to come out again, just release your hand. It will stop by itself. Now, you have a question? Okay, at the end. Now, I was talking about you not hanging the fire extinguisher once you have used it. So that if, peradventure, there is a fire another day, and somebody now sees that this fire extinguisher is hanged, now, what it means that you can use that fire extinguisher. Now, the person now carries the fire extinguisher without even looking at the gauge and some other things like that. He attacks the fire. He presses the lever, and nothing is coming out. You can see that that person can endanger his or her life. That is why once a fire extinguisher is used, just place it on the floor. Now, what do we do? Fire actions. Next slide. Let's quickly round up. Now, fire actions. If you discover a fire, the actions to take include the first thing, raise an alarm. Please, don't try to take your certificate first, this thing. First, your life is more important than the certificate. We've seen some people, some graduates that graduate with first class, they have never worked with their certificate, and they are working. Where they are working is not even related. Some people will study engineering and will be doing business. They did not employ him or her because of that certificate. It's because of what he or she has upstairs. Now, you raise an alarm by shouting, fire, fire. If the people around that place, if they are Yoruba, it's better you shout in their dialect, so that everybody can understand. So, the second thing, after you have raised an alarm, the second thing you need to do is to call the fire service immediately. Don't assume you can extinguish your fire, even when you are trained. Don't assume you can extinguish the fire yourself. First call the fire service. Then, the third thing, evacuate the building. Then you leave only the person that knows how to operate the extinguisher. Now, while you are evacuating the building, do not run, push or pull others to avoid stampede. Just walk smartly. Don't run, don't push. Then, do not use lift or elevator, because you don't know the source of the fire. If the fire is coming from, the fire starts as a result of power failure, or maybe overheating, or overloading of circuit or high voltage, and you are using a lift as a means of escape. Once there's power interruption, what do you think will happen? You get stuck in the lift. So don't use the lift, use the stair. Now, attack the fire with the appropriate fire extinguisher. I think we have explained that. Then everybody must go to the fire assembly point. Why do you need to go to the fire assembly point? So that we do head counts. We all know the people inside there. If peradventure there's a fire, we all evacuate. Now, if somebody is missing and the fire service arrives, you can easily tell them that there's a possibility that that person is still inside, is still trapped. So that the first thing they first do when they get there is to find a way of getting that person, even before extinguishing the fire. The first thing they will do is to find a way of taking that person out of the premise. Now, when do you tackle a fire? Next slide. When do you tackle a fire? If the rule of 3 has been carried out. So the rule of 3 is what? When you have raised an alarm, when you have called the fire service, when you have evacuated the building. The next one is when the fire is not bigger than a waste paper bin. That is incipient fire. When the fire has just started. As someone that is not professional, you are not expected to fight a growing fire. It is only an incipient fire you are expected to fight. Once you see that the fire is spreading from this table to this, from this chair to this chair, the fire has already spread to this old chair, please evacuate the building. when you consider it is safe to tackle the fire. Another one, when you have appropriate fire extinguisher. When you know that the fire extinguisher is the right extinguisher to use on that class of fire, that is when you fight the fire. If it's not the appropriate fire extinguisher, kindly evacuate and wait for the fire service to come. When you have been trained on how to use the fire extinguisher, that's another thing. It's very important. If you are not trained, if I had not told you that you have to remove the safety pin, I know most people don't know that they have to remove the safety pin before they press, before they squeeze the lever. So someone that is not trained and has not seen where the fire extinguisher has been used will not know that he or she has to remove the safety pin. The person will just be struggling with the extinguisher. Before you know it, the fire can catch up with him or her. When your escape route is not in danger, that's the first thing you have to do. You have to see that, what if this fire gets out of hand? Is there any room for escape? If your escape route is in danger, you don't tackle a fire. Just go and leave the fire. When gas cylinders or chemicals are not the cause of fire, you know, gas cylinders, they can easily explode. Then chemicals, the inhalation of chemicals can cause respiratory illness. If the fire service arrive, there's something called breathing up. If a chemical is on fire, even without a chemical being on fire, at any point in time, if a fire department is responding to a scene of emergency, there's something called breathing apparatus. You see, they put it on their back. It's like a cylindrical tank. It supplies breathable air to them. So even if they are exposed to chemical, they are breathing normal air. They won't get affected with that inhalation of chemical. So for you that is not trained, you know, you can't have breathing apparatus at home. So if a chemical is involved in fire and you pick up your fire extinguisher, say you want to extinguish the fire, if you inhale that chemical, you can easily fall unconscious. Is that clear? So if gas and chemical is the cause of the fire, please leave. Don't bother. Don't bother to tackle such fire. Next slide. Now, these are the names of the fire stations we have and their numbers. Okay, you want to take the picture? Yeah. What do you say? State Fire Service. That one is federal. Have you taken the picture? Can we move on? Next slide, please. Now, movement in a smoke. Now, the fire department have discovered that it is not even the fire that kills people. It is the smoke. Even without fire getting to the apartment, to the room that person is, you just discover that you get to a scene of emergency and you break into a door, you see that there's no fire there, but the people there, they are already dead or they are falling unconscious. It is this. That is why it is fire department do advise that if you want to sleep at night, always make sure that all your doors and windows are locked. We've seen cases whereby the smoke of just ordinary past my neighbor kills an entire family, a family of 5 or 6. Or past my neighbor that is not up to 30,000 naira. Then takes the life of a family of 5 or 6. So if by adventure you open your window down and there's a fire in your neighbor's house, you know smoke will surely travel. And smoke has traveled to your whole room. You now waking up, you now discover that your room is filled with smoke. There's a way you can escape from that incident. All you just need to do, if you discover that smoke they are always found at the upper part, at the upper layer of the atmosphere. Because smoke is lighter than air. It's lighter than normal air. Smoke, air is a mixture of gases. Smoke, they are heated gas. Now, from physics, we talk about gases of different densities. Now, if you have two gases that are mixed together, a lighter gas, a less dense gas, will be found at the upper layer of the air, and a denser gas, that is heavier gas, will be found at the lower layer of the air. Now, in this case, smoke is lighter than normal air we are breathing. So it means that the smoke will be found at the upper layer, and the breathable air will be found at the lower layer. That's how it works. So when you wake up and you find yourself in a smoke-locked environment, all you just need to do is just go down, lie down flat. If you lie down flat, one, there'll still be some kind of breathable air at the lower layer on the floor. You'll still be able to breathe. It's not very well, but that air will still will be able to sustain you for some minutes till you get out of that environment. Then secondly, you have this little amount of visibility under when you go down. You have this little amount of visibility. When you have done that, move to the wall. That's by crawling. You don't stand. Now crawl to the wall side. Then you start moving by the wall. And when you are moving by the wall, please, when you are feeling the wall, use the back of your palm. Yes. You know, this back of your palm. Let's say by adventure, you come across a live wire or something. If you use the back of your palm, it can easily repel it. But if you are going like this, if you touch a live wire, you can easily take hold of it. And what will happen? Electrocution. It can lead to death. So, move by crawling. Move to the wall. Then you go gradually, crawling with the back of your hand. You move. You can see this place. Let's say I have crawled to that place. I am now going. You know, I will come in contact with the AC. Let's say the AC, the wire is now naked. If I use my palm to hold it, I can easily get electrocuted. But if I use the back of my palm to go, it will repel it. I'll just go. After the AC is what? What do you have there? Door, an escape route. So when I now get to the door, the first thing I need to do before opening the door is to feel it, to feel the door. If the door is hotter, if the temperature of the door is hotter than the temperature of where I am, then what does that say? What does that tell me? There is fire. So that I don't move from fire pan to fire. So you can easily leave that place and come elsewhere. Maybe you just crawl. You continue crawling. That means that place is even more dangerous than where you are. Then you can just crawl back. Then pass through this place. You feel it. You can see that the door is not hot. You can easily open and go. So when you find yourself in a smoke-locked environment, the first thing you need to do is to what? To go down, lie down flat. Then lie down flat, find the wall. When you get to the wall, then you begin to do your movement. Before you know it, at the end of every wall, you will find a door. You will find windows. Am I correct? So you can easily do what? You can easily find your way out. But before you move out, always make sure you feel it. Now, fire prevention. We have only 2 slides left. 2. Fire prevention. These are the range of activities that are intended to prevent the outbreak of fire and to limit the consequences if the fire occurs. Next slide. Now, common preventive measures include keep work and storage areas clean and tidy. That is good housekeeping. I've made mention of that. The second one, unplug electrical appliances when you leave the house. Like the example of that iron. The example of that iron. Now, the third one is install and ensure that fire extinguishers correspond to the potential risk. Know the location and how to use them. Before you purchase any fire extinguisher, maybe in your company or your house, always employ the service of a fire officer or a firefighter. There's something called fire risk assessment. Fire risk assessment simply means you coming to that place, you identify the hazard. What and what can cause fire? The hazard you are now talking about is the fire hazard. What and what can cause fire? Okay, you analyze it. After analyzing it, you can now recommend the type of fire extinguisher they are going to need. Let's say in an office, the fire extinguisher they will need in an office might be different from the ones they will need in a filling station. So, you need to ensure that you are installing the appropriate fire extinguisher. Now, ensure that fire protection equipment are maintained and made available for use. That maintenance is very important. For every fire extinguisher must be maintained every 6 months. Especially this specific fire extinguisher. It contains a dry chemical powder. And that powder can easily cake. So if you don't service it regularly, if it cakes and it's now time for you to use, the extinguisher is there, the expellent is there, but because you don't service it regularly, it has caked. Now you want to press it. Will it come out? So that is why you need to do what? Service it regularly, every 6 months. This CO2, that one you can still, because it's a gas, you can service that once a year. But this dry chemical powder, make sure you service it every 6 months. We have where you can service it. Some people take it to our fire stations. But if you need to service any fire extinguisher, let me know. If you take it to fire stations, they will service it for you. No, not free. Remember, I told you something. They are going to if you want to perform, if you want to know if before we started, you asked me, were you the one that asked me the question? Before you can say that an extinguisher is fit for use, you have to conduct what we call hydrostatic test. So during that service period, they have to conduct hydrostatic test on the cylinder. If it is not fit for use, they will tell you can no longer use it. It's not safe for you to use it. You have to get another one. Don't worry, I'm almost done. Do not misuse electrical equipment. That is overloading of electrical circuit. We talked about that one. Do not block fire exits or call points. Dispose matchsticks carefully. When you turn on your burner, when you want to dispose them, always make sure the fire is off completely. Store flammable materials responsibly. That is, if you want to store it, there's a need for you to store it. Turn off gas stoves and other flammable equipment when you leave the house. Training and retraining of staff on fire safety is very important, and that's what we are doing here. Training and retraining of staff is very important. Next slide. That's the final slide. It's still studying you about fire. Next slide, please. Now, conclusively, fire means, the F means, feel my presence around you always. Now, the I means inquire to know about the damage I can offer. R means reason and think of the aftermath effects of me. Before you perform any careless attitude, always reason and think that this action I want to take, if by adventure there is a fire outbreak, let's say in your house, you are leaving your iron unattended to. If the house gets burnt, who will accommodate you? Always think about that before you engage in unsafe act. Educate your families and neighbors to be cautious of me always. Now, lastly, fire is a good friend, and it can be in no time be your worst enemy if handled with levity. It can cost you everything you have labored for, and even your life. Don't be a victim. Be fire safety cautious. Now, any question?
Thank you very much. It was very insightful. So I wanted to ask, because I've seen people use excuse me, gutter water, sand, soapy water when there are cases of fire incidents to probably quench the fire. Are these safe? Then I want to say another thing. This is like, it's not a question, it's like a contribution. So from what you've been saying now, it feels like you must have a knowledge of these things. So you work there. Do you guys often go out to train people? Because I don't think I've seen them before coming to lecture people on this that you just did today.
Now, so your first question. You talked about you've seen people use sand. Sand is a fire extinguisher. You know, you see sand inside the fire bucket. What sand does is that it smooths the fire. One, and sand can be used for two things. When I was explaining, you can use it to prevent fire from occurring, and you can also use it to extinguish fire. So that gutter water, what is working is water, not the dirt. Water just to cool. Then that foam, that soap water, they are using as an improvised for foam fire extinguisher. But that foam fire extinguisher, when you are saying that is it safe, I always want to say that if it is not foam, if it's not Panadol, it can never be Panadol. Do you understand? If you have a large quantity of flammable liquid, that Omo or clean you are mixing with water will not be able to service the situation, because foam concentrate is different from detergent. Their chemical composition differs. So if in the case of large amount of flammable liquid, not even large amount, in the case of flammable liquid, foam is not Omo and water, because we need three things to make up a chemical foam compound. Remember I said the foam concentrate, the water, and the air. Now, let's now assume you have substituted that foam concentrate with Omo. That is one. You have water. Then where is the air coming from? Can you now see that it's not safe? Because a finished foam will form a bubble. Do you understand? The finished foam will form a bubble. Now, and it is that air that makes the foam and water to form that bubble. That bubble, it has a role it's playing on the fire. Now, that air that will make the bubble to be formed is now absent. So it is not safe. professionally, it is not safe to be mixing. It's that you use ordinary water. If ordinary water cannot extinguish that fire, kindly leave the place. Then we talk about the second one, the training. Yes, there's something that we call special service in fire service. And special service is this, are the services rendered by fire service other than firefighting. Like the one is you said is a special service. If you want any fire department to come and train you, you invite them. And that type of service you pay. There are some ones you pay, some ones you don't pay. Now, let me now tell you. Now, there are some ones that are free. Maybe you want, maybe you don't, an example of special service is humanitarian service. Sometimes we do humanitarian service. Let's say this area is flooded. Let's say rain falls, and like this rain now, there's a heavy downpour, the area is now flooded. The fire service can come to come and deflood the place. That kind of service is what? Free. Another one, if you need water and you come to us, if you need water and you come to us, they can easily, because we have water, we have pumping machine, we have water. If you need water and you come to us, they can easily give you water. But this kind of service is what you pay for. We don't train for free. So you have a question?
Sorry, earlier you made mention of factors that causes fire, and you said something like careless acts. So, and he said whenever we see such acts, we should draw that person's attention to it. But in this part of the country, we found ourselves whereby refilling gas is being sold in a residential area. Refilling gas is being sold in a residential area. What I mean by residential area is area. No, I'm not even talking about movie. In the streets where people live, where people sleep. Yeah, refilling gas, and these people will fill the cylinder up with gas and lock it in the shop, close the window, burglary and everything. And you also said it is part of the factors that triggers light. In such situation, what should we do?
Thank you very much. Now, the first thing you need to do, because we have, in this society now, we have CDAs. Now, report such person or that person having that shop, report that person to the CDA. It has happened. It happened in Fawemi. It happened in Fawemi Street. There was a lady selling gas over there in the street. We shouted at that person. When the pressure was too much, the person has to stop the business. If the pressure is too much, if there is oneness, and you tell the person, this woman, you must leave here. The person don't have a choice than to leave, because it's dangerous. This gas we are talking about, it will explode. It will tear people apart. We've attended fire scenes that you'll be picking arm, you'll be picking it here, you'll be picking head. So it's very dangerous. If you know the cause effect of what we are saying, you people will work in oneness. The first thing, report that person to the CDA. So when you report that person to the CDA, make sure you mount pressure on the CDA, because the CDA will know that maybe they are collecting something from that person. Make sure you mount pressure on the CDA, because if it happens, it is not only the person that will bear the consequence. Even if it happens, the person might not even be around. Do you understand? It might be the neighbors that will bear the brunt. So before you bear that brunt, tell that person, mount pressure on the CDA, and he might shaking in his say, any boy could be business. Tell this person to take his business out of this place. You guys don't want it. It is your community. And if the CDA does not do anything, come to fire service to come and report that person. Is that understood? Any other question? So, okay, you have a question.
want to know, can fire extinguishers be used overhead? Like I'm here now and something is, but can I, not this far, but is it right to point fire extinguisher overhead?
It's not, because if you want to use fire extinguisher, you have to stand at a considerable distance. Now, for this CO2 fire extinguisher, you have to get very close to the fire, because you know CO2 is a gas. I know how gas behaves when it gets to the air. So this type of extinguisher, if you want to use it, make sure you get very close to the fire. If there is a possibility for you to carry chair, to stand on the chair, so that the fire extinguisher can get to where it is going. But for you now standing here or standing there, now point the fire extinguisher to the AC. It might not get there. Do you understand? But this DCP, you can stand and use it. It will get there. Just make sure you press it very well. Any other question? No other question. That means we have come to an end of the presentation. Thank you very much. Now, let's do the practical. Anywhere you want us to do it. Yeah, we can use here, don't worry. But we have to come. We have to come and see. Let's just form an act. People can just stand on the altar or anywhere. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, during my presentation, I said that 3 things has to combine in their right proportion before a fire can start. That is fuel, heat, and oxygen. They must combine in their right proportion. That means there must be enough heat, there must be enough fuel, and there must be enough oxygen for fire to start. And I said that for you to extinguish a fire, you must obey the principle of fire extinction. And what does that principle state? It states that to put out a fire, one or more of these elements has to be removed. Now, it's either you remove the heat from the fire, you remove the fuel from the fire, or you remove the oxygen. When you remove heat, that process is called cooling. When you remove the fuel from the fire, that process is called starvation. And when you remove oxygen from the fire, that process is called smoothing. Now, I'm going to set up a fire. The first thing I will use, we have 3 portable fire extinguishers here. This is fire blanket, and those are fire extinguisher. That one in red is DCP fire extinguisher. The black one is CO2 fire extinguisher. Now, I'm going to set up a fire now and use the blanket. What the blanket is doing is smoothing the fire. It's removing oxygen from the fire.
Arm's length. Hold the fire blanket. First thing is to hold the fire blanket.
Then the fire blanket. Now, you hold the fire blanket at arm's length, covering your hand. You can see my hand is not outside, like this. You use it to cover your hand, so that you don't get yourself injured. Now, you watch the direction of the wind. Now, come, don't worry. Now, you watch the direction of the wind. Now, here, because it is a confined space, there is no much air. You can see that the fire is somehow direct. It's not the wind is not blowing the fire towards this side or towards this side. So, you can attack the fire from any angle. Then, if you are moving, you move gradually. If the wind is blowing into that place, like this, if the wind is blowing into that place, you just come to the back, follow the direction of the wind. You don't face it. You don't face it. Now, I've explained. I'll put another fuel now. Better. Thank you. So, be enough fuel. Now, just move. Move. You move. Don't worry. You hold it, let's say for like 30 seconds to avoid reignition.
So the fire blanket can be used more than once, Abi?
Yes, that one is once. So you can just. Then why removing? Lest I forget. While you are removing the fire blanket, you use the fire blanket to cover your face. Because of reignition. You know, once oxygen is reintroduced into the fire, it can reignite. So because of reignition, you use that fire blanket to cover your face. Now, this is what you do. Watch me. Can you see? The fire is gone. Can you see that the fire is gone? So that's how to use a fire blanket. I need a volunteer.
No, Ashimo. Volunteer.
You know why we have to learn how to use this. See, in fire service, we always say that ẹnu ò ṣe, òyìnbó, òpaná. All this, all the hours I have used speaking, lecturing, if you don't know how to use it, you don't know how to demonstrate it practically, it's just zero. It's as good as you have not done anything. So you have to make use of it, so that if it happens, you know that I have used it. You have that confidence that I have used it before. So if I have used it before, I can use it again. So it's not enough for you to watch me do it. You yourself, you have to do it. So who will volunteer?
President now. Is president supposed to do it now? President, just
No, you just have to leave it for like 30 to 45 seconds just to avoid reignition. And always remember, anything can happen. If you are removing this fire blanket, always make sure you use it to shield your face. So that if peradventure there is reignition, your face doesn't get burnt. Can you see that the fire is gone? So we need a female. What a man can do. Do you have anybody that wants to use the fire blanket? Now, let's use the fire blanket. If you cannot use the fire blanket, you should be able to use the fire extinguisher. Dami, if you cannot use the fire blanket, you will be able to use the fire extinguisher. Don't worry, I will show you how to use it. I will not tell you to do something without me doing it first. So please hold it. Remember, if you want to operate a fire extinguisher is operated with the acronym called PASS. The first thing is to what? Pull the safety pin. That A means aim at the base of the fire. The first S means what? Squeeze the lever, the top handle. Then the last S means sweep from side to side. Now, I'm going to set up a fire and use the fire extinguisher. Before I remove the safety pin, you can see a seal here. This seal is preventing the safety pin from displacement, so that it does not leave the place. Now, the first thing I will do is to cut out the seal. Then I'll pull the safety pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the lever, and sweep from side to side. Outside. just cut it out. Guys, cut it out. Then you do what? Pull the safety pin. Once you have pulled the safety pin, before you get to the fire, just carry it this way. Don't press. You see? Then you have to press on the fire. We need two females. We need two females and two males.
Take this one. No, this one. I can take it outside. You can take this one outside. You can take this one at the bench. You understand? Because of the powder. Yeah, because of the powder. This one now, let's use this one.
Okay, we shouldn't use
Yeah, you have contents. Yeah, don't worry. Two.
Oh my God. No, I cannot do that.
If you don't want to volunteer yourself, I have called you. Come.
I'm sorry, please. Don't let me go and flop me. I can't do it. I'm serious. That's not
You are learning. Sam,
From the base.
And you direct.
represents reverend. Instead of it to learn it and go and teach them one step, you are here. Are you right? Yeah, let me try.
Tí bá ti rọ́wọ́ yín máa ṣe.
I can't do it though.
Another person.
No,
out quick.
I can't even church not much eating.
No. No, they're doing the children department.
It's okay now, the fire will be too much.
They won't allow it. Since they're not allowed by you, they might not allow it.
What's that? Come on, Mile Sheva.
You could do this.
Where are you going to with the mic? Come here.
Yeah, okay. Nobody must stop.
So, do you have any question? So, that means you have come to an end of the program. Thanks very much.
Let's clap for our facilitator. Let's clap for our facilitators. Let's clap for them. Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you so very much, sir. We have really been instructed, and sincerely, it goes fast to show that this class, this lesson is something you can go and watch again. I think we'll ask you to remove it from the church group, and we'll privatize it and we'll be collecting money for it. But it's awesome. We can share with our friends. We can ask them to watch. I really learned a lot. Especially the fact that it's not just having fire extinguisher in your car or having it in your church or anywhere. You must be sure that that fire extinguisher is in the right condition. So at this, we have come to the end of our lecture, and also we have come to the end of the Youth Week for 2022. Can we clap for Jesus? Can we clap for Jesus? Even as I will invite the youth pastor to say the benediction, and we go to our house. As I invite forward the youth pastor.
Hallelujah. Can we pray? Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you for how far you've helped us since Sunday. We thank you for the blessings you bestowed upon us during the course of this glorious week. Holy Father, accept our thanks in Jesus' name. We thank you for today's lecture. We thank you for the exposition and the enlightenment. Father, accept our thanks in Jesus' name. Father, we pray that all the blessings we've gotten from this week will be permanent in our lives in Jesus' name. We pray, O God, that you satisfy us indeed with the bread of life in Jesus' name. We pray as we launch out into the days ahead, we'll go in your power, in your grace, in Jesus' name. We pray we never hunger, we never thirst again in Jesus' name. We thank you, Father, because you've answered us. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed.
There shall be showers of blessing.
One more time. What we waited for. Done. Can you see what the Lord has done? What we waited for has come to pass. See what the Lord has done. On your wedding day, you're gonna sing that. Can you see what the Lord has done? When you walk into that property, can you see what the Lord has? When that healing happens, what we've been praying for, He has brought to pass. See what